Hello, folks. This is Don Chioffi, and this is Straight Talk. And as we're approaching the election, the upcoming March election on March 5th, have an opportunity to talk to mayoral candidate Mike Messier. And as we're closing in on this very important mayoral race, I thought we'd take today to go down through some of the extensive resume and bio history of Mike and the community so that you can get to know him better. And as we go through this, I'd like to parry this back and forth with Mike to basically put you in touch with him and how he relates to the community of Rutland, the proud community of Rutland, which he has chosen to take the opportunity to try and serve as its mayor. Now, Mike's 56 years old. We won't comment on that because, of course, that's just a stated fact. And he's happily married, lives up near Combination Pond, which he proudly led the effort to save with his wife Melissa. His kids are out of the nest right now, grown up and on their way, Matthew and Morgan. And his father Gus, you probably know, as the proud operator of Gus's Canteen for any number of years as an entrepreneur, and Gus did pretty well. And let's start with the Combination Pond, Mike, and give a little history of that and what it means to the citizens of Rutland and what it meant to you, what it means to you.
Well, Don, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and enjoy very much the community of Rutland. You know, I've worked since the time I was 14. I think my first job was a paper route in and around the city of Rutland and some of the neighborhoods, and worked with my friends. We would substitute for one another, but we got that job done. Early mornings, late in the evenings, and collecting. And I was relatively frugal and judicious with saving my money. And then over the 12 houses that I worked on by way of gut rehabs and then self-construction, I saved enough working with my wife Melissa and our family to be able to build my own home. And that home was built on the side of Combination Pond. And I chose Rutland very specifically because I was educated at Rutland. I attended Mount St. Joseph Academy. My wife attended Rutland High School. We both went on to UVM. As my children got older and approached the high school age, we said, Rutland's a great community to raise a family. It's, you know, like that village. They say it takes a village, and it really does. The teachers at Rutland High School are great. Those at Mount St. Joseph Academy are great, and all the grade school teachers, and I happen to have attended Lincoln. But it's really a supportive community, and there's open communications between the teachers and the parents, and it worked out very, very well. So my son went on to UVM, graduated, went to work right out of school for TD Bank in Vermont, and my daughter worked at the hospital for an extended period of time in x-rays. But by building our home, we were able to meet more people in the Charters Hill area. And that pond up there is really an asset to the community and to the area. People use its paths, they go fishing, the fishing derby's held up there annually. There are people that go ice fishing and skating. And in some ways that rink formed one of the three foundations for today's Raha hockey program, because kids learned how to skate and play stick and puck up there, as well as at Rotary, and then some on Georgetta as well. So it really is in that neighborhood, and for the city of Rutland, the one watershed where people can come together, learn about biota, learn about ecology, go fishing, and just live and enjoy themselves in the heart of the community.
And I'm only aware of a very small part of that, having been involved with the fishing derby, but when cars are backed up all the way up back to Stratton Road pretty much every year for the fishing derby, we can see what that does for the community, and the recreation department has cooperated with that. Let's go to your accounting background through your UVM and your St. Michael's master's degree in finance years. How does that relate to your ability and your candidacy for mayor?
Okay. Well, while I was at UVM studying computers and eventually graduating with a degree in accounting, I actually owned and operated my own small business while I was at the University of Vermont. The student center cafeteria was being reconstructed for the whole year. So I actually purchased a step van. I went to Lindholm Diner, and they had these old stainless steel 7-gallon coffee urns. So I was able to make 28 gallons of coffee a day. I sold actually 21 gallons of coffee and 30 dozen bagels right in front of the Royal Tyler Theater.
Now, your father didn't have anything to do with that entrepreneurial activity, I'm sure.
Well, I think he did, and I helped my father basically construct and deconstruct a number of catering units that he had, and kept them on the road by way of the maintenance. We tried to do as much of our own maintenance as we could, and keep the overheads relatively low and the quality high. So stainless steel and the things that were incorporated into those vehicles were relatively expensive, but you also had to be on task and on schedule. So oftentimes, it's time to make the coffee, like time to make the donuts. 4:30 in the morning, you're up making the coffee and the donuts. And so I can remember one time, actually, I fell asleep in an economics class at UVM. And then the professor called me, he says, Mike, answer the question on the board. So I was able to answer. He says, Mike, I know you do your homework, but please come see me after class. So I said to him, well, listen, I'm applying the law of supply and demand right outside. So if you'd like to walk outside with me, I can show you what's going on. So I showed him my truck, and I think at that time I had a line maybe 20 people long, and so he laughed. And we had a great relationship that evolved after that, because basically I was doing and working and running a business while I was at school, and I learned a lot, both academically and practically, by getting the job done and serving those customers.
How will this relate to you as mayor?
Well, I think once again, my approach is more of a boots on. My wife oftentimes will comment, well, you need to neaten up your appearance a little bit. And one of the running things in our house is that in the trunks of my vehicle, I have the rubber boots to go in the basements to work on the furnaces. I have the middle of the road clothes after I go in a shop or something like that, and then I have the suit in there as well. I never know what my day is going to bring, whether I'm in a basement maintaining a furnace or working with a plumbing or sewer issue, or basically doing accounting. Like this is a big season for me because I'm working on people's books. So I have to have all those clothes available to me, and I wear a number of hats, Don.
This is good. As long as you can figure out which one you got to put on at which time. Now, after your finance and accounting degrees, you went to work for GE, and I'm assuming that was your entry-level position out of school. And what was that particular phase of your life like, and what did that do for you?
Working at GE was a great experience for me. I came back to Rutland having graduated from UVM and wanted to establish my family here. I already had my home, so the money that I made at UVM while I had my own business, I bought my first home in Rutland on East Center Street at 23 years old. And so I had a house and I had a garage, so I had to start. And what I did is I had a catering business during the morning, and then I worked at GE second shift. So I worked 3 to 11. And I got to basically operate some machinery very early, but I was working with my manager, and he says, you're pretty good at understanding the inventory control system. So what happened then is I helped the gentlemen and women that had been on the floor for a long time understand computers, understand inventory, understand how to use those computers and tracking the inventory, because it's one of the earliest inventory tracking systems that GE implemented on the floor. And so that was a great experience. And while I was there, I also continued taking accounting classes through GE as well.
Beautiful. Where'd you go from GE? What was your next?
There was an opportunity at Central Vermont Public Service Corporation that I saw in the paper, and it was working in the Treasury Department. And basically what happened there is that the migration was on from, and many of you probably remember the old punch card, just like a card, manila card that used to go in the computers. Then they went to the big old mainframes. Well, this was the opportunity to transfer that information to the smaller computers, the personal computers. And while I was at UVM, I learned how to construct computers and program computers, and also the accounting functions. So my job was there to migrate the financial model, both the short-term and longer-term 10-year financial model, from the mainframe to the personal computer, and also work on planning and budgeting and accounting while I was in the Treasury Department.
Beautiful. How long?
I was there for 10 years.
10 years
Yep.
at CV?
Yes, that's correct.
And a lot of that experience that you got at Central Vermont Public Service Corporation kind of, that must have prepared you for your next ventures. Where did you go from there?
Right. So near the end of my career at Central Vermont Public Service Corporation, I was responsible for general managership of the rental water heater program. So once again, that puts me back in the basements. So let's say people had a leaky water heater, so they had high pressure in one area of the city or another. We used to have to try to work to resolve those plumbing issues for those customers because they were renting the water heaters, and then make sure that they're on the appropriate rate, the off-peak, to try to minimize their electric utility bill. But at the same time, renewable energies were coming out. And one of the greatest experience I had, I got to go to Stone Mountain, Georgia for one of the earliest smart homes. And that home was basically integrating the latest technology into homes. And we see it now today with some of these programmable thermostats, with some of the solar energy that's deployed throughout the community, to basically learn about renewable energies. And I also traded electricity and scheduled electricity. So that gave me kind of information on the next journey, which I took to Southern California Edison. And I helped them start up alternative energy and electricity trading floor. So kind of like Wall Street and commodities trading for electricity, to try to ensure that consumers got the lowest priced energy on their bill. And so from there I went to a startup called, and it was recruited to a place called the Energy Authority in Jacksonville, Florida, and did the same. So did a startup. I was like one of the first 6 employees, and by the time I left, I think they were up to 30 employees. So that was another startup that was done in Jacksonville, Florida, and that was for municipal electric utilities. And they also incorporated renewables and hydro storage and hydro facilities, and looked to optimize the electricity by way of the efficiencies of the renewables. Then went to a Southern company in the New England opportunity. So I had an opportunity in New England. So I lived in Plymouth, Mass for 2 years, and would commute to Cambridge, Mass, Boston, Mass, and was controller for an operation there, Don. In that role, I had 24 people direct reporting to me, including tax accountants, accounting people, secretarial support staff, and alternative energy people that were investigating how we could make our plants more efficient, and also construction. So we reconstructed, deconstructed, and reconstructed a power plant in Cambridge, Mass.
So that supervision phase of your employment with 24 people would kind of relate to a management function in City Hall. I mean, how do you view the mayor's role? And in other words, what I'm getting at, Mike, is, you know, without getting really too critical, there's got to be a really good reason why you feel it's time to replace the existing mayor with you. And you know, it's a little bit unusual for a mayor in his first term to be challenged like this. So what do you see as the major needs of the city that aren't being met, or that you can meet better? I guess that's the way I'd put it.
Well, my perception is, and the management approach that I like, is bring in everyone, talk with everyone. And really, as mayor, I will work for you, the taxpayer. And I believe that we need to lower taxes and have improved representation. Now, what I mean by that is that there's a $1.8 million unassigned fund balance, taxes that have been collected that have yet to be spent. Now, that means that government, with a small g here in Rutland, has done a good job. Well, let's get that money back to the taxpayers, Don. And then when I saw the 12.6% tax increase in a 10-minute meeting, that is really kind of the thorn or the motivation that I have to be here today. We need to do better. I didn't budget for that in my family's budget. I'm assuming many people did not. So when you see a 12.6% tax increase and you're not expecting one, that can be a shock. That can be $400 or $500 a year. And then if you take the $1.8 million, that's another $400 a year, $400 for that year that's sitting there that really should go back to the taxpayers. That's my belief. And so that could be a tank of fuel. That could be a down payment on a car. It could be buying books for a college student. So the taxpayers are better utilizing their own money than they are the city sitting on it. That's my perspective, Don.
Well, that's I guess you'd call that more of a kind of a libertarian approach to government, really, is that, you know, government, get off our butts and, you know, let us try to run our own lives rather than trying to run it for us. And that's interesting that you say that, because, you know, not to debate here, but you bring up some interesting points that, you know, the amount that can be saved by giving that back to the taxpayers may, in to some people seem like, well, it's only $400. Well, I think governments at all levels seem to have this attitude that it's only this, it's only that, it's only that, and you add all these things up, and in a year when they didn't get a 12.6% increase in their salary, or where the state is saying, well, you got to pay 10 or 12 or 15 or 20 or 50% more to get your car inspected, and you got to have the car in order to get to work, and you know that's a necessity. And the fees and taxes and other forms of government intrusion. They're looking for money any way they can. I don't know. I just heard by way of I think it was Facebook or someplace else that one of the fees that was proposed to be raised in Montpelier was another $25 fee for every retailer that sells liquor or cigarettes. And the retail association said, what? Just another $25 tacked on because they can get it? And every single time they tax these things on, where does it fall? It goes right back down. You know, it's like the stuff always flows downhill, and it's the little guy on the end that's getting nailed with this. So anyways, I guess your attitude would be that the budget of the city of Rutland has got to be kept in line with the general economy and the population of the city and its ability to serve those people. When we've got a declining population, do we not, in Rutland City?
Yes, we do, Don, and that's one of the things that we need to try to turn around. And how could we do that? Well, later today, we're going to be working and participating in opening a carving studio. It's kind of like an incubator space so people can come and learn how to carve. So I believe that there are opportunities like that, especially with the students, that we may be able to help them get into their own business from an entrepreneurial perspective. So while they're in college, be working on and in a business that would be pre-permitted by some of the landlords in downtown Rutland to give them an opportunity to learn, get that hands-on experience. So part-time, you know, after school hours or before school hours, are there ways we can interest entrepreneurs, especially young entrepreneurs in our area? You know, a lot of what is done today can be done online, Don. It can be done remotely from your home. I know I help people in their tax situations and with tax software and things like that. Some of it I can do remotely, and in order to do that remotely, I need high-speed internet. And so, but there are many things that people can basically do. They can live in Rutland and then kind of like telecommunicate to other places, earn more money, and then be able to raise their family locally. And so I see that as an opportunity. And then some of these applications and some of these gaming technologies, if we would make Rutland kind of like Silicon Valley East and start to attract those people for the quality of life, but those people that can program and work remotely, I think that would be an opportunity as well, Don. But once again, pre-permitting that, making sure the high-speed internet is available to those small businesses, those students, and those entrepreneurs.
Well, this has come up in the past, and I was on a couple of study committees back, 2020 Vision Study Committee, and for the future of Rutland, the Rutland region, and it involved all the communities around. And one of the things that continually came up was that because of our lack of regional infrastructure and roads for transportation, that we would never really be a massive industrial complex because we don't have that connection to the interstate, and it's hard to get here from there. And that being the case, that anything that was digital, anything that was home office that could be done over the airwaves, and that we could be that kind of a capital, as long as we had the technical support to support that kind of a thing, but that we could be a home office for any kind of a business that basically relied on digital files, home office insurance, home office technology, technology repair, you know, whatever. So that may be the case, that's the future of Rutland, but we've got to do something, don't we? I mean, we can't just be continually talking about what we're going to do, and where do we get the support for that? Where do we get the people for that? I mean, what's the chicken and what's the egg in this particular discussion?
Well, I see that the STEM program at Stafford is a great opportunity And we've seen the success that the robotics organization has had there in some of the competitions. Now, I believe that we should really showcase what they're doing there in some of these windows in downtown Rutland. Let's have the robotic technology there so people can start to see what's going on. Because in many ways, the more dangerous work, the work that's currently done in some places can be displaced and robots applied. I go back in time. One of my grandfathers on my maternal side, my mom's father, he had an oat thresher, and it still exists, and it's up at Shelburne Museum, and it's so neat to see it. It's like a kind of a Rube Goldberg device. It has the belts on the outside, but what he used to do is go from place to place during the season and thresh the oats, and that's a supplement to his farmer's income. And so similar things could probably be done here in Rutland, where we have these groups that have graduated from Stafford and the STEM program and been through the robotics program. Is there a way we could work with, let's say, MIT or other places where it's very expensive per square foot to have these labs, to build these robots? Is there an association or affiliation we can have with the University of Vermont, with Castleton College, with Stafford, to bring it to that next level so we could have kids learn about robots, learn how to program robots, and put them to work in our community as well as other communities?
Well, how about help from the federal government too? And maybe it's dream big. Go big or go home. We could be technically, or you could dream about being the robotic center of the country, for that matter. We could develop this as the premier robotics AI center of the world right here.
Certainly, Don. And when we talk about successes in our history, Rutland's history, some people know, some people don't. John Deere was actually born in Rutland, Vermont, and he went on to develop the self-clearing plow. What he did is he took what he knew. He took the fact that he had worked as a sawyer, which is basically someone that keeps the saws maintained and sharp and smooth, and he was into farm implements as well. So he developed the first self-clearing plow, where you were able to plow your field and it would clear itself. And it's in the hundreds of billions of how much money and implements John Deere has sold. You see them now at Home Depot and the small lawn and garden tractors. You see some of the larger tractors that farmers use. That gentleman was born in Rutland, Vermont, so you have to dream big, Don.
Well, many times the country forgets this, but we have to remind them once in a while about this thing. Well, tell us a little bit more about this carving studio story, because it's a nice story, and I think it's typical of what can happen and what does happen in the good parts of Rutland, Vermont.
Well, this was referred to as the Marble City. We have the Marble Bank. We drive around Rutland, and we're very fortunate to have, some different types of marble. Some of it's white marble, some of it's green marble. So we are fortunate, residually from the Champlain Sea, the coral evolved into marble, and we were able to mine that marble and apply it to structures around the world, including but not limited to Washington, D.C.
So how did this thing happen?
So the Kiwanis Club got a request from Nick Santoro, and Nick approached the Kiwanis Club. So what happened is, as a matter of fact, later today we'll be going and opening a studio on State Street. I believe the number is 97 State Street. 99 State Street. And basically we are providing some seed capital for electricity and heat and clerical and other infrastructure. And we're working with Nick to basically open the studio so that all people are welcome from all ages to learn how to carve marble. That would include children and other people that have time or would like just to learn about marble carving. So it's really going to be a hands-on experience, Don, and hopefully will stimulate some commerce. And we already have people that are contacting Nick and others to purchase some pieces that are developed there. So it's kind of back to our roots, back to the foundation of Rutland, and taking that next step forward and continuing.
It's interesting because you're talking about the range of people that would be involved, and of course, my wife's family is from West Rutland, and they're heavily involved in the quarrying industry over there, and marble from years back. And of course, when Nick approached us in the Kiwanis Club, immediately I thought, well, it'd be nice to carve something in my spare time. And when I was helping Nick with some of the stuff over there, he said, well, why don't we design a little logo thing for the carving studio? So I said, okay. So I got a little design of the Kiwanis carving workshop and put it on this piece of marble that he gave me. And I'm going to work at that to chink away and see if my tactile talents are still there. And So it can range from youth, from disabled people that may be trying to rehab themselves from any kind of a disability. And there's a lot of people in the city of Rutland that have a lot of talent, as Nick explained to us at the club. What is the most critical need that you see that you would put at the top priority as mayor if you're elected? In other words, what would you do that you don't see being done right now?
So once again, Don, I would give as much of the taxpayers' money that's been over-collected back to the taxpayers, put it back in their hands so that they can use it. So they can use it to invest in their own homes, maybe some paint, maybe improvement in their yards, and then potentially continue the education of their children. So really include the community in a planning process as well. That's one of the things that I enjoy doing the most. So develop a community planning process. Almost 30 years ago, we had a process, and I think it was like Back on Track or something like that. I don't think that's been done in almost 30 years. So get the community involved. What is it the community wants to do? Let's have the taxpayers and the community members help us develop the priorities for Rutland, and then mark or measure our progress toward reaching and obtaining those priorities.
That unassigned fund balance, you've done some preliminary math on that. What did you say that represents to the average taxpayer in the city of Rutland, the average property owner?
Between 9 and 10%, Don, of their tax bill, of their annual tax bill, $400 more or less.
Around $400?
Yeah.
That's, in this day and age, that's not small change to a lot of people.
Right.
So what are you doing in the campaign? I mean, we're coming up to crunch time. Next week's the election, and
So I have a number of things that are in the works. I'm going to be opening an office on State Street, very near this marble carving studio. So look for that in the next week or two. I'm going to be going on SYB with Mike to discuss and solicit questions from our audience and the community to help me focus my efforts and prioritize what people and taxpayers and citizens believe needs to be done in Rutland. I'm going to be out there on the streets, going door to door, asking for input into planning process for Rutland. What do you perceive to be the strengths? What do you perceive to be the weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for the Rutland community? So be ready. Prepare yourselves, because I'm going to be asking questions of you so that I can represent you and your money, because I know you work hard for those dollars. Let's see if we can put them to use for yourself and the community in the highest and best way, and live in harmony, work with one another. Some of the best things that we do in this community is we get together, and that's what I love about Combination Pond, because every day there's 30 or 40 people. Sometimes there's as many as 300, but we can get together, share ideas, enjoy life, and make this a better and stronger community.
Mike, it's been a pleasure to have you on the program and to listen to what your plans are for the city of Rutland, and to hear about your campaign for mayor. I want to make it very clear that this is not a one-sided program. I try not to be a powder puff interviewer. I wanted to ask you as many of the tough questions as I can. There's a whole mess of other issues that may or may not be controversial. There's a fire department issue, there's a police department issue, and I'm sure that you're willing to talk to people about what you're hearing when you're out on the hustings about the reorganization and or the cost and or the structure that would benefit the city of Rutland to the max. I have invited the mayor to be on the program, and I'm still waiting for his positive response. He, for whatever reason, he didn't accept my offer, even though I was in a group that was backing his election last time around. For whatever reason, he chose not to come on the program and tell us what his vision for the future of the city of Rutland is. I still invite him to do that, and I would treat him with the same respect that I treat you on the program, and I encourage our listeners to tune in and be sure and vote on Tuesday, March 5th. Thank you, and We'll see you again.